Yo. So just continuing now with some of this documentation which we wrote earlier. The point of this is to align what we've got on the app with what we want it to do. So the way I'm going to get it to do this is just go through this instructions markdown file which I've set up. Start with the high priority MVP gaps. So it's just kind of a few small things that it's going to be changing, and then I want it to check with me that it's done so that I can test it. I want to make sure that it continues to be able to build and that everything runs on the app smoothly. So right now we can see that SD Studio loads up fine. The thing which it's doing right now, this projects tab, is if I add one, like it doesn't show up straight away. It only happens after I click refresh. But the functionality of it works fine. Like it creates these folders, and if I delete these and click refresh, and then you can see that it doesn't have any projects now. So it doesn't seem to know that I don't want it to only be when it refreshes. So it does seem to be fine. It seems to have added this profile. So I don't want to have to click refresh. I want that to just automatically change. Like it just needs to refresh on its own. Is there a way around that? So what we want it to do is automatically update in the UI of the app if there's a change to the folder. So when we create a project, it should refresh. You know, you shouldn't have to create a project and then click refresh to be able to see it in the UI. So now the build fails. I'm now unable to build in Xcode. Check the errors. I'm still getting used to this workflow in Cursor and Xcode. Like normally I'm using Next.js and it's primarily a browser, the terminal and Cursor. You know, I'm used to that workflow when I'm making changes, if I don't see the changes or if I get errors. So to do it with Chrome plugins, I'm kind of used to that as well. But I'm not really used to doing it in Swift with Xcode. Like I don't know. There was something which I had to set in Xcode that Cursor couldn't access, and there it seems like there's a few things which Xcode is doing for us that Cursor can't access for some reason. So I'm still kind of coming to terms with that. So now let's test. Let's see if this builds. Okay. This is working. Projects, test new. So now that doesn't work at all. So what it's doing is it's not showing the individual projects now. It's just showing the main. It's now not showing the individual project pages in the projects scene. It's kind of showing the parent folder. So if you look at the path of one of the individual projects, you'll see that the one that we're seeing is like the year and month folder. We should be able to see the project files individually. And possibly be able to sort them and maybe look at them by date. So this is where I need to be careful and making it so that it's not a file browser. You know, this is supposed to be mainly for automating some of the workflow, but I think it could easily sort of lose track and try and become like a media, you know, a way to view the files, which is not really what I want. I was quite surprised at how simple it was to get to this point, having set up. Like the Swift UI seems to be like, if you look at Finder versus this app, like it's very similar. You know, it uses everything which is familiar to you on the Mac, which I was quite surprised by. that it was quite easy to get it to that point. So remove the debug login. Let's see where we're at with this. So the year month folder should not be detected as a project. Logic looks correct now. Let's see if we can run this and get it to work. Project detection was too broad. So now we can see the two new projects. Let's see if we add a new one, test 1, 2, 3. It gets added straight away. And now I want to see what happens if I delete it. So I've deleted that folder in Finder and I need to manually click refresh. I don't really want to be clicking refresh. If I have another Finder tab open with this, I don't need to click refresh to see the changes. Is it possible to completely remove this refresh button and make it do it periodically, or is there a way to just link it to the file system? So for example, if I was to manually delete a project folder using Finder, I would want it to update in the UI straight away without having to click refresh. So periodic refresh. So let's test creating a project folder, and then what we're going to do is rename it and then delete it and see how well it links up. So let's create a new one, test 1, 2, 3. We see that here. Let's try and rename that, put 4, 5, 6 on the end. So you can see that nothing has happened there. So it maybe needs this 30 seconds to do it. Let me see what happens if I add a random folder here. Random folder. So now we can see this number has updated here. Now let's try and delete that folder manually and see if we see a change here. So it's probably not working because it has this name structure. And that's probably why it's not showing as a project here. So if I delete a project folder from Finder or I rename it, it updates after the 30 seconds, but it's not immediate. And also if I add a project here, it doesn't show up. I also tried to manually add a project into Finder and nothing has shown up in the UI. So the one I manually created doesn't get detected because it doesn't have the required subfolders, which is this raw selected B-roll audio project files. So now it's going to watch the entire project's directory tree, not just the top level, and then a more robust file system watcher class and update the monitoring approach. So this is what we do with the folders at the moment. So we create a workspace. And you can see that once you set a workspace, it will create two directories, imported and projects. The first one is just the raw files from the SD cards. And the next is organized project folders, which is what we see here. So, just need to run this again. So the build is failing. This looks like the same issue it had before. Same error because the project's view is struck. Let me fix this by removing the weak references. It's not needed in this context. So I think there's a couple of things that I really need to be adding so that I have a lot of the docs and rules for Swift. I'm going to try and find it. So this was that video I was watching. So this guy seems to go over the rules for cursor. So this is the cursor rules. But this is for iOS. in the projects UI, if I click on a folder and click delete, nothing happens. We should have a dialog that double checks if we want to delete it, and then it should actually delete the file. So test 456. So we got the test there straight away. So when I change the name, then that's really fast. So monitoring, if you watch up here, test monitoring, change the file name and it updates straight away. If I delete it, it deletes really fast. So now if I delete stuff, it's really quick. So I'm going to say the other changes to make it faster to update seem to have worked. And I want to be able to right click a project in the projects UI and get the same as if we click the 3 dots and get the drop down, so that we get the options if we right click the card as well. So I'm going to call this Swift. Is it MDC? I've been using this for a long time and I've not used this new version of the rules. So organize rules by placing them in rules directories. Nested rules automatically attach when their files are in the directory are referenced. So you can actually just go cursor settings rules. I'm going to delete this because it might not be right. Call this Swift rules. I really need to be using this. So now we got this, we can delete the project, and that has actually deleted the project. So you can see we get this dialog, click yes, and then it actually gets deleted. If we add something, it gets added really quick. The only thing I want to add is to be able to rename it. the rename dialog works fine, but when we right click a project, click rename, the text input field isn't automatically highlighted. The cancel or the confirm button is highlighted, and that's not necessarily what we want it to do. We want to be able to type easily on there. I think that's probably the only thing. But then if I rename this, there's no dialog. If you move to bin in Finder, there's no dialog. So maybe the dialog is a little bit more cumbersome than it needs to be. But I just want it so that if someone's making changes to a folder or deleting files, that it's checking, you know, that's what you want to do. I mean, I've never really had to rename a file or something like that for a project, so I wouldn't say it's something that you do very regularly. The status thing on here, not really very useful. This gets into the realm of it being more like a project management tool, showing what projects are active and stuff. So I think this is important when you're working on any kind of app, it's like working on a client project. You want to really limit the scope creep, and any sort of inkling that might happen, you need to rein it in a bit. Like if you feel like it's getting beyond what you intended, you really need to double check that you're doing what you intend to do. Because if I want to implement status into this, I need to factor that into the flow for the user. I need to think about how to position that, and it's not a necessary aspect of this. So the thing to factor in is that I've been doing this now for 25 minutes, and I've only really done some very small changes. So if you want to implement something, you need to factor in the time that it's going to take, and that there's probably going to be problems which you're then going to have to spend time on as well. So if something's not necessary, get rid of it. Spend time on what is important and what is actually the intended use of the app. So let's test out the rename. There's got to be a better way than clicking this stop button and then play again. There has to be. Rename. So you can see that, like, I can't type straight away. Like, this isn't focused straight away. The text isn't focused, like the text field isn't focused when we click rename on a project. And so I think it would be better if there wasn't a dialogue for the rename, but we could just change it where the text is similar to how Finder looks when you rename something. I'm going to give it a screenshot of that to show what I mean. So if I rename this, there's no dialogue, I can just type here. So I'm coming to the end of the month on my first month using the Cursor $200 plan. And that's why I'm like, I needed a project to do with this. I needed something. So that's what this is. Me trying to make the most out of these credits. So this is it. Get rid of the dialogue. Update the menu items to start an inline edit. So my thought in this is really that if the app looks this similar to the standard UI on a Mac, so this is what it looks like right now, you can see that that's very similar. You know, I want it to be intuitive so that someone doesn't need to learn very much to be able to use this. So I want to be able to use it like it's Finder, but have all of the extra functionality which I'm adding into it. So let's try this. So that's quite good. You can actually double click that and update the name on that, which is good. You can see if I make a change on the Finder that it updates here. So that's good. That's nice. This is a good point to save the changes at. So I'm just going to say update the instructions.md file for what we've completed here and just check anything off the list. So we've basically done nothing that was on this list, but we've tidied up some of the ways to use the app a little bit. Yeah, this is better actually. But this is what I'm saying about be clear about what you're trying to do, because you can see I've just spent half an hour on something which was necessary, but it wasn't actually on the list. So you can easily spend half an hour, even a whole day sometimes on something which you didn't even intend to do. Seems to be going quite slow. Maybe I'm running out of credits or something. I'm going to leave it here for now. Next time I'm going to be working on this Vault system. So Vault is this concept within here. So when you import something from an SD card, it will go into a folder organized by date, and we're calling that the Vault. At the moment it's just called imported. So it's this folder. So like you'd have all your imported files by date. And there's a few changes that we want to do to that. We want it so that if you put an SD card in, you get the option of importing to the Vault or importing directly to a project. So that was kind of why we needed the projects UI kind of clean. And so this will be the next step. After I get off this, I really need to set up some proper project rules for Cursor, because I feel like I am definitely repeating myself to this, especially with this instructions document. I'm going to let this just do its thing and just leave it to run for a while, and then I'm going to come back and check it in a bit. Just going to review this, see if it worked. So it's updated the word imported to Vault everywhere, which is what we wanted it to do. And then also I want it so if I plug an SD card in, that I will see a dialog so I need to gonna pop a SD card in, see what it does. The thing is, I've already got something running in the background that will pop up with this. It'll pop up and ask if I want to import. So this is not it. But say I come. So there's nothing on there at the moment. Let me add something to this folder. So here we can see that we can set like different, doesn't actually work right now, the roles. I'm going to just change that on the instructions. On the instructions.md, can you just note that on control command so what was it on volumes and the role, the drop down isn't working. It opens and we select another option, i.e. from source to archive, but it doesn't change. Just add this to instructions.md for MVP changes. Okay, and then this, right now we don't see any option to import. That's fine. So let's try import now. So this is the video which I put on there, so you can see this is kind of the view that we get. So we can then see that this has just gone into Vault 2024 10, even though it should be 9 for this month. For some reason that's 10. And then we got the video. Look at that for a spot. Serious pad. So we didn't get any dialogue. Let's see if it deleted. So it didn't delete, and we didn't see a dialogue. Okay, so the remaining tasks from the Vault system implementation are add frozen Vault concept documentation and enforcement. Yeah, that's fine. Yes, proceed. Also give the option in settings to delete footage from, actually I'm going to do that on the checksum. So I'm going to say proceed there. So in instructions, under step 2, enhanced checksum verification, we need to add some settings which allow us to delete files from the SD card source after they've completed being moved over. Hey, just seen the message in the chat. What's good, man? No, that's going to be in my cursor prompt. Sending that anyway. Forgot I was like talking to that at the same time. Started reading their chat. Whoa. No. Update the instructions.md. Don't actually make any changes. Just maybe check the file set up for now and see what would need to be done to allow this. So, frozen Vault. I don't really understand what that is. Can you explain what frozen vault means in this context? So source file deletion option. I've got a script which does this already. If anyone's interested in using this, it's already on my GitHub, which I'll link somewhere. Basically, this script which I've got is like a Python version of this. Already works fine. Like if I put an SD card in now, let me check. Let me eject it and then put it back in. So you'll see this dialog, and this is not the app which we're making here, this is the script. So this SD card detected, we click import, and then it runs this script. So you can see here that it would have moved one file, and then we get this dialog where we can click open folder, and then that goes to today's, I think, should go there. It may be old because it's, yeah, it's from the date it's created, not the day that it's imported. So this is from 9th of October. It's that same video, right? And then what it should do is, you can see that it's ejected the SD card, but if I put it back in, you'll see that the file has been deleted from the SD card. So when I record, all I have to do is just come home and plug in my SD card, and it just does everything. So you can see it's deleted that file, it organizes it by date, and then even if I've got footage that's over a couple of days, the videos get organized by when they were created. And so the script already exists and it's free to use, it's open source, it's on GitHub. But what I'm creating here is a UI for this system. And then we can do a little bit more interesting stuff with it. And then this is going to be a Mac application. So that's what we're making here. So now I'm going to see, updated the instructions. Let's see. So make sure that the project builds after these changes. Project profile. When an SD card's connected, you can also see it in the dashboard here. You get this information about like where you're archiving, how much storage you have left. So we've changed the name to Vault. We've added frozen property to enforce read-only nature. So this is what I wanted to ask it, because I don't know if that's what we want. We don't want to change stuff like that. So I can see that the UI is calling it that, but does it actually do anything? Like, are we actually stopping a user from modifying the files? So this is a situation where AI just talks complete rubbish. Like there's no need for it to have been talking about frozen. Like it's a conceptual implementation. Like we don't want that. Like yeah. Okay, we need to completely scrap this concept of frozen. That wasn't something that was in the instructions, I believe. And then it's not something that we need to do. It's not within the scope of what this app needs to do. So this Boolean value which you've got, we don't want it to be read-only. We don't want to modify the files in this way. We're just handling where they go to and organizing it. We don't need to modify permissions and stuff like that. So remove any mention of this frozen because it's not necessary. Like we can just call it vault or raw footage. So yeah, remove that. It does say that there. Add frozen vault concept. It's totally pointless. So it's literally like a UI thing. It only really mentions it on the front end. There's no actual functionality to back it up. This is a key thing where you can see that it can just waste so much time. And like, I'm paying for these credits and it's just doing random unnecessary things. I think I missed that line in the instructions. Update the checklist in instructions.md and then complete this 321 backup implementation according to the instructions file. So what we're trying to add is a 3-2-1 backup system. So when people import, this is the concept. So you have your original data plus 2 backup copies. It ensures that even if 1 or 2 copies are lost or corrupted, you still have other versions to restore from. So in our app, what we're going to have is, for example, I could store it to a hard drive, my laptop, and some cloud storage or a local network storage. So this just means that you can't really lose any footage. Suppose it's more useful in a professional setting, but it's still good to have a backup. So let's see. So I don't know what's happened here. Yo, yes. Right now, this is still work in progress. I'm only a couple of days into this, so the sample isn't available for anyone to use, but there is a script which uses Python that is an open source version that doesn't have the UI, so I can share that with you. So essentially what it is the point of this is to be able to automatically import so this is the repo for it. I've just replied to it in the comments as well. So it's a script that automatically imports and organizes media files from an SD card. But what it also does is it clears the SD card and then ejects it. So it's literally a matter of plugging in an SD card and then everything's organized by date. So this is totally free Python script, all the instructions really simple to use. And then what we're doing is creating a front end for this and adding a bit more functionality. We're making it quite similar to Finder and then having options for this kind of automation as well. So the change that it made here, this modal is skewed and can't be seen. Volt. So the Vault backup configuration, configure a 3-2-1 backup strategy for your Vault. Files imported to the Vault will be automatically copied to all enabled backup destinations, right? Primary is the one which is in our workspace, which we've set here. So that's this folder. And this is where a video gets moved to when we import from an SD card. But now, we want to be able to set some backup destinations. I mean, a backup destination should really just open a Finder window. And if it's cloud, it should let us, it should really give us a kind of drop down that lets us choose local or network or cloud. And it should give us a different window depending on what we select. Oh, it actually has exactly that. So, local drive, let's see, I want to say Lacey. So I could put it there, for example. I'm going to call it Vault Backup. Try and add this. Need one more location for a 3-2-1 strategy. So right now there doesn't seem like there's any implementation for network or cloud storage. But this thing does work fine now. The sheet does show fine now, but there's no setup for network or cloud storage. So we want to be able to have various options for when we select that. In the settings on this page, we need to be able to scroll it because it's bigger than the height of the window. Echo, what time is sunset?
Sunset in Southampton will be at 6:52 p.m. today.
I wanted to go for a bike ride before it gets dark. So here we go. What have we got? Add destination, network location, cloud storage. For example, you could add Amazon S3 to have cloud storage. Network location using the server. Different protocols available. Now, that needs a lot of testing to make sure that that actually works. I'm going to save it for now. So I'm going to leave it there for today. We've basically implemented the first part of the MVP. So the Vault system, the 3-2-1 backup strategy. Now we need to do a few things with the dialogues. And then a few enhancements to the dashboard. We want it to be able to auto detect an SD card and be able to set the file has unsaved. So we're going to leave that there. Be back on this tomorrow. And I'm just going to keep streaming this till it's done. So I've called it building a Mac app in 30 days. I did about 1 day on it before I started streaming. I've streamed on another day and then again today. So I'm going to call this day 3. Next stream I'm going to try and add some overlays and stuff like that so I can add a countdown and stuff. So yeah, look forward to continuing on this. Peace.